Hello, class. Welcome to the Philosophy of Death and Dying. My name is Aurelio Madrid, and today we're going to briefly cover some of the details of the syllabus. Understand that after I post this video, I will also have a screencast that will help me get you familiar with D2L, and then also any follow-up details that I may have overlooked in my overview right now, okay? And so getting started, this is the Philosophy of Death and Dying. Catalog number is 220180, and we're about to step into the fall 2020 semester. First bit of info has to do with my phone number and likewise email. And so understand that when I'm asking for email or talking about email, I'm usually referring to the email that we use by way of D2L. And on D2L, I believe that is known as internal messaging. So that could be a little confusing because you're like, where do I send email? And it's otherwise known as internal messaging on D2L, and I'll have some details on that when I do the screencast. I was reading this initial paragraph here on the philosophy of death and dying, but let me just give a brief overview of it. So I break up the different ways in which we understand the philosophy of death and dying by way of the different modes of philosophy. So we have metaphysics, which is looking at relations, and likewise freedom, free will, and determinism, and also what's called ontology, or the study of being and existence. So when we're thinking of topics like that, we're considering metaphysics, okay? And mostly metaphysics is mostly having to do with how things are related to one another. And so when we're thinking about existence, that's key because metaphysics is key because it's then showing us that if we are to understand existence better, we have to come to terms with mortality, correct? Then we also look at ethics as well. And so that's a big deal as far as death and dying, because with ethics is a way that we are understanding our practical life normatively. And so when we understand our practical lives normatively, we're looking at things like issues like abortion, the death penalty, assisted suicide, also areas of homicide and crime. Also racial issues could have death component, right? So like, for instance, Black Lives Matter, a lot of the problem there rests in the racism that is brought upon people of color in terms of killing them, right? Then we could also think about epistemology. So when we're considering epistemology, we're also understanding that as the branch of philosophy otherwise known as the study of knowledge. So when we're asking questions about how it is that we know things, we are also understanding that how we know things has limitation and it's finite, right? That in other words, that finitude is also taking into regard our mortality, right? That we come to an end, and that we come to an end is logical, okay? It makes sense. And so we take that aspect of the way that we consider the world, our finitude, as a way that we understand things logically, okay? So in other words, that things that living forever is illogical is interesting, because then that shows us that maybe there's a separation between the way that we understand the afterlife and rational thought, right? That in other words, it doesn't seem to be rational that things live forever, yet that's an aspect of how it is that we understand ourselves religiously. And so The way that we understand ourselves religiously is a matter of faith, and that is often in contrast to reason. So understand that we're also going to be talking a lot about reason in this class as well, because of its strong connection to epistemology. And the way that we're making sense of things, and also how it is that we're going beyond reason as well. Then there's also the aesthetic component. So that's a big deal, right? Because we think about movies, we also think about novels, we think about portrayals of crime stories, etc. All have these themes of death, drama, also the contemporary culture, right? So like we're in contemporary culture, we're obsessed with zombies, etc., right? And then obviously the political situation has us taking into consideration how death is understood, etc., etc. And then also obviously there's the religious component. So the way that we're understanding death as far as a religious component is rather extensive in terms of considering immortality. Likewise, in terms of considering a way that we console ourselves when those around us die, and also in preparation for our death as well. How is it that we use religious faith to come to terms with our negotiation and understanding of death as well? So a way that one of the reasons why people turn to religion is as a way to contend with mortality, the mortality of ourselves and the mortality of people around us as well, right? And yes, so, and also the mortality of the religious figures as well. So if we even think of Jesus Christ, we think of the crucifixion, etc. All of that has a death component to it that's linked to aesthetics, also linked to religious activity, so on and so forth. So there are, it's amazing how much you could get into the subject of death and dying to every mode of philosophical thinking. There's actually not enough time in this class to explore all of the possibilities. So in the sense, that's an amazing way to think about it, because one of the problems with death and dying is that it is something that people often avoid talking about. I'm here by a park, so hopefully these birds are not too loud. But yeah, so in other words, that people avoid talking about death and dying would make you think that there wouldn't be enough subject matter, but surprisingly, there's a huge amount of subject matter to talk about and cover as far as the modes of different modes of philosophical thinking, metaphysics, epistemology, logic, aesthetics, religious experience, ethics, etc. Right? Okay, and so yes, you could look at that paragraph on the syllabus, and then also take into consideration some of the general information. I'm not going to go over that in too much detail right now because you'll be able to read it on the syllabus. One thing to note right away is that this class does not have a textbook, and so that textbook is, the readings will be provided by way of a PDF, and so I'll have more details on that. I guess that also reminds me that most of the way that we navigate through this class will obviously be on D2L, and the 2 pages that we're going to be looking at the most on D2L would be the announcements page, which is on our homepage, and then likewise the content tab. And that content tab, I look at it as the hub of the class. So in other words, a lot of the way that you're getting the PDFs will be by way of the content tab that will take you to the assignments, that will have you linked to the PDFs, And that sounds confusing right now if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, but that'll be clear. And I'll also bring you to some more specifics when I make the screencast, okay? So there we go. And then as far as attendance goes, attendance online is accounted for your submissions. So in other words, as you submit work, that's how it is that I know that you're attending the class. And also know too that here at CCA, if you do not submit anything, or I don't hear from you, and I don't hear from you before September 8th, then I officially drop you from the class, okay? And we're also going to be working in a synchronous component to the class, and I'm going to have some more details leading up to that to determine whether or not we're going to meet on Tuesday or Thursday, whether we're going to meet on Tuesday or Thursday, okay? And then so, turning the page. Okay, and then so turning the page, we have some detail on late work here. So on makeup and late work, makeup work, essays, outlines, and drafts will only be accepted under these conditions. So do not email me any work, okay? Because what you're going to be doing is placing that in the appropriate folder, even if it's late. So the reason why I don't want students to email me any work is because I lose track of it. So if it's in the right folder, that's the way that I can keep track of it. And then likewise, the first time that you're late, I'm going to give you free. But with any subsequent late work, I'm going to then give you 20% point reduction off of the maximum score of whatever that assignment is, okay? And likewise, if there's any problem as far as the essays and the exam as well, there will always be a 20% point reduction taken off of every time that you are late after the first free grace late assignment. Yes. And then, so with the points, let's see, the thing to know there is that the points are based off of 1,000 points, and you'll see all the details in the gradebook, and I'm going to be working on that in the next few days. I have a lot to do, so I want to make sure I have the most important stuff, but as we progress, you'll have that the gradebook updated ASAP. Let's see, how to come to class prepared, success in the classroom. What you want to know about that, and I think this is really key to point out, is that taking a philosophy class is going to require a lot of reading, and understand that reading could be really difficult. And so one thing that I encourage students to do, and even though you hear this time and time again, I can't emphasize it enough. Every semester I have problems with this. So in other words, yes, there's a lot of reading for this class, and you're also going to be writing a lot in this class as well. And obviously discussing it now that we have the option of our video feed. And so understand that once we, when you ask questions, that's a way to alleviate confusion before you start working or as you work. But never turn in an assignment and tell me that you were confused after you turned it in without asking me a question about it, okay? Because I really want you to start asking the question as you're working and before you're working on the assignment, so that we could alleviate the confusion not only for you, but also for other people, because oftentimes I try to address the rest of the class if you're having a point of confusion. So that's really important, because this class is reading intensive, and then also you're going to be writing a lot as well, okay? Then I think that I'm going to have the rest of this in a screencast. I don't want to, I think that that's it. So that's really good to get us going, and I'll have more on the screencast, and we'll be determining the first day of our meeting pretty soon here. So thank you. Bye-bye.